sewer right now. They don't have any primary bills that they're aware of. I don't foresee them any coming up in the next week or so, so I think we'll be able to just pass over those ones.
They don't have a share in the unemployment?
Most of those are school and town. So the total is $118,000. So the prior year electricity ones is actually 68,000. And then this unemployment one for 46,000.
Excuse me, through the chair. Did you say something about solar panel payment, $30,000 for electricity?
Yeah, so
Is that,
I was just eyeballing this and it's obviously way more.
are we signed with a solar company?
Right, so
And
the-
aren't we supposed to get a 10% discount?
This is so the way it works is we get the bill from them, which has the 10% reduction on it. So this is our portion of the electricity bill minus the 10% discount. I'm not sure if it's exactly 10, I'd have to check.
Through the chair again. Do you know if the solar company is giving us the rate for 12 months? Or they're only giving us the rate as long as the sun is out, and in the winter, they reduce the amount of electricity that they will provide for us?
No, it's the same rate year-round.
And they provide the same amount of electricity whether it's winter or summer?
No, so what they do is, how much is generated, we get a fixed amount from the generation. So, yeah, if we're generating less in the winter, then it's less that we're saving from that in the summer.
We're generating less electricity in the winter than we are in the summer?
There's less sun.
Yeah, but we're using more in the winter than we are in the summer.
Right.
And if they can't generate the amount for the customers they have for that field, they're reducing the amount that they're allowing you and giving you. You're gonna get do you get a double bill, one from National Grid and one from them?
No, it's just from them. So, yeah, we get a bill from them which shows how much we pay National Grid, or how much National Grid billed them, and we get the discount off of that bill.
And that's 10%. What is their service charges on that 10%?
I don't think there is a service charge, it's just built in.
I'm with a solar company, and I have 10% discount on mine, but after they completely figure everything out, I'm only getting a 1% discount. So I don't think they're gonna treat a municipality any better or worse than they treat a business.
So, I mean, I can double check this, but when I get the bill, it's the bill from them, and it has the National Grid bill, and it shows exactly what they charge them, and then they take a percentage.
Yeah, then it shows the charge back or your discount on the particular meters. I don't know how many meters the town has, but each particular meter gets so much charge back or 10% discount, and it'll show, that's what comes off the bill.
Right, yeah, and I don't get a charge in addition to that.
I'd double check if I were you.
That
That
may be
30,000
something-
sounds like a lot of money.
That may be something we'll ask the new town accountant to take a look at.
68,000.
Okay.
One other question, are
about
they
30.
current with this year's bills?
Yes. Alright. So that takes us to Article 5 on the special. So this is to appropriate money for the snow and ice deficit. Right now, that number is $198,000. That is slated to come from free cash. Article 6 is to fund the cleanup of the compost pile and to cover expenses to remove waste that was found uncapped near the whole thing.
Through the chair, the compost, how much just for the compost?
It's about 68,000.
68 for compost. Now, is this something we did every year, or is this something new?
No, so we hadn't done it for years and years. So DEP came out and wrote us a violation letter, gave us an administrative consent order, so they were requiring us to remove it all, and then annually we'll have to have it removed. So this is, in going forward, it's probably only going to be about $6,000 to $7,000, but that is an additional cost to the compost.
Now, this is the compost that's sitting on Minebrook, that area?
Yeah.
Okay. Who's taking that away?
I forgot the vendor's name.
Okay. We couldn't give it away to
No, so we've been trying to give it away.
landscapers?
No, there
Farmers.
is no market for it.
It's $20 a yard for topsoil. Compost in 3 years is good topsoil. There's no market for it?
We could not find a market for it.
What about that company up in, where is that? They're always getting complaints about the stench because they do composting. There's a place up in, I think, the northern part of Massachusetts that a lot of these landscapers and everything else bring their, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'd still have to haul it there, which would be an expense. I mean, I can ask Kenny, but he looked at the different options to get rid of this, and you could not find someone to just take it off your hands.
Through the chair, so why weren't we doing it yearly?
One, we didn't know that it had to be done yearly, so it had been like 8 to 10 years to stockpile at the site. And someone complained to DEP about another item, and so when they were looking, they came out and saw huge piles of compost. Said, you cannot have that.
To the chair. If they move that compost pile to a private entity, would the DEP allow it?
They're not, it's less, only if it was a registered compost facility.
Unbelievable.
When does this have to be removed by? That on there, July or something, did you say?
They wanted it removed already, so.
Okay.
How much, through the chair, how much is there? I mean, could we open it up to the town and say,
We do
Come-
open it up to the town.
come
So
get your-
It is, and there's some set aside for the town, just, there's way more than could ever be taken away.
I wonder if we put it out there and says, we have a lot, come
I mean,
get it, some people
Right,
won't.
I mean, we kept like a large, not large enough, but we kept enough. So there's two things. One, we're gonna have to remove some of the other excess, garbage that's not capped. So we kept some compost to backfill all of that. And then we kept some that is available for residents to pick up. And we kept more than we usually give out in a year, so. I wish someone would just come and take it, but no one's coming to take it.
Just to the chair, do we know how much uncapped landfill there is at this point, or is that not
We
even looked
don't.
at yet?
So we are setting up a meeting with DEP and an engineer. They're gonna go out, dig test pits to see how far out and how deep it is. So at that point, we'll have a better idea. This was, the 200,000 was based on just rough estimates of what I figured would be how much cubic yards is there, based on what the DEP said would probably be to haul it away.
And they won't allow us to spread it and seed it?
No, I mean, that's what it is now. I mean, we will analyze whether it's more cost effective to cap it rather than dig it all out and take it over to another landfill. But we're assuming for the moment that it's gonna be cheaper to remove it and haul it away. So let's move on. So, Article 7. These are for debt service payments. One's the town hall heating system for $90,000, one highway department vehicles for $8,800, and the third for fire approved. They were borrowed on a short-term basis a few years ago. When we put together the budget, we were not aware that these short-term bans need to be paid down in fiscal year 18. So we are now going to pay those down. And then we obviously have done a better job with our debt service projections, so this probably won't happen again. So, moving on to the annual, again, we have Article 1, which is the year reports and recommendations. 2 is the actual budget, the operating budget for the town, the general fund. We can quickly go over these slides. So we have new growth assumed at $225,000. Our Prop 2.5 is just over $500,000. State aid. Add all these up, and you get about $1.4 million in new money available for the budget. So total, it's about $45.5 million. It's a total increase of about 3.1%. So the changes in the expenses, the health insurance went down. We've talked about how the unions have agreed to forego their premium holiday to make up for that. The retirement assessment went up almost $200,000. The SWEC assessment went down. Last year we got extra money from the state, so that was very convenient. We reduced the DPW electricity by $145,000 to account for LED lights. I reduced the gasoline. We had, the budget had some give to it because you never know where gas prices might go. So this will make it very in line with the exact expenses that we have projected for 18. So if gas prices go up, we'll have to have some sort of budget adjustment. Veteran benefits went down. This is just how many people applied. I skipped this net utility. So the new library, the engineer's estimate is about $37,000 for electricity and gas costs. I'm showing a net increase, or net zero increase in utilities because I reduced everyone else's to the exact numbers that we expect for the fiscal year. The assessment went up and the schools went up $840,000. So again, we talked about health insurance. I think we need to go into that, or just the table of how the expenses look. And I don't know if there's any questions on this. And then we've talked about how in the future, we're going to have difficulties funding if we currently grow at the same rate of growing, and we don't have additional revenue. So, unless there's more questions on that, we'll keep moving with the warrant.
I think after what we'll do is turn the TV so the audience can see some of these slides as they request.
So you can't see, right?
Oh, you can?
Yes.
Oh, good.
So Article 3 is to fund the sewer budget at just over $4 million. That is about a 5% increase, which is due to debt payments, and we put in a little bit extra money for capital upgrades. The water budget actually went down 7%, about $156,000. It went down about $156,000. The debt amount actually reduced by $220,000, and the rest was these increases on other budget funds.
Question, through the chair. These, on the water,
Yep.
with these rates that were set by the Board of Selectmen Monday night, what effect does that have to the FY19 budget?
Right, so the rates adopted by the Board of Selectmen is to fund this budget.
To fund this, what you have in here?
Excuse me, through the chair. The rate was $20 surcharge per quarter, which is $80 more a year, plus, is there an increase in the water itself besides that $80 a year?
Plus 2%.
How many?
2%.
2%.
We are looking at other options, to see if there's a more equitable way to
Well-
spread the costs out.
With a 5%, you said, in sewer, and a 2% in water, and an $80 surcharge, how do you expect people to exist and feed themselves anymore?
So the water rates went up 2%, sewer rates went up 2%, and then the water had the $80 for the capital improvements. You know, the town already approved spending that money, and the money is currently being spent constructing the project. So it's simply, we have to fund what we already agreed that we would pay. Are there other options that, rather than an $80 capital improvement fee? Yes, and I will look at those and come back different options, but right now, that's what is needed to fund the construction of the treatment plant.
Through the chair again. The water department, the DEP water department, there's 2 personnel up there. We're talking to private citizens, and they were trying to explain the difference between a municipality and a private operator or well, and it was, I believe, an hour and a half discussion on it with the DEP. With so many complaints going to the Worcester DEP and them trying to smooth everything over, I don't think they can keep the lid on this and too much longer. What are you gonna do if they come in and say those pipes have to be changed immediately or within the next 2 years?
So we have a good working relationship with DEP. They're very much aware of our situation and our game plan.
I know, they've been backing off, because I know the 2 girls that are up there. They've been backing off, but they've been getting slammed with complaints on a daily basis.
Mike, we're gonna move along with the,
Well,
warrant articles.
we're on the water. That's
We
a
are on the
that's a
water.
very important subject for
But
this
we're talking
town.
about the increase due to the water filtration plant.
Right, so moving on, Article 5 is a placeholder article that the town's always had. This allows us to borrow on a short-term basis if we need to cover any issues with cash flow. Article 6 is to put $100,000 into the stabilization fund from free cash. That will increase our stabilization fund to 1.3 million, which is short of our estimated, or our stated goal of 5%, about $900,000 less. So Article 7 is to formally adopt revolving funds and then to put a cap on revolving funds. So last year, the government, the state legislature adopted the municipal modernization bill, so we will no longer have to adopt these revolving funds. We'll just have to set the limit at each town meeting. Just FYI.
Through the chair. These revolving funds,
Yep.
do we ever go back and see if these revolving funds that are listed here still, I know they exist, but are they functional? You know what, you know what I mean? Are they still using, yeah,
That too.
actively?
So,
Because the reason why I ask it, the question is, I see one here, graphic arts for the school committee.
yeah.
They no longer have a graphics art department, so
Right, so yeah, that one actually has a balance in it, but you're right, there has been no activity in the account, so, what we're gonna do is, the balance is like $1,500, we're gonna use that and pay for the printing of the town report books, and then we'll be able to just close that one out, so. Yeah, that one can't be closed. I looked at the other ones, some of them don't have much activity. We can look at removing them in the future.
who manages these revolving? The town accountant, the treasurer, or who?
Right, so, I mean, it has on here who has the authority to spend, but who would be the town accountant that would
Through the chair, so as Sarah said, with underfunding, I mean, I know that animal control is pretty underfunded. How do we have any say in helping to redistribute or modify?
Right, so these are revolving funds, so this is just, if there's a program that we bring money in, this is to pay for those expenses going out. So the library, for instance, that if someone pays us money because we printed out copies for them, and they pay us whatever, $3, that money will go into that fund, and when we need to pay for the ink or the paper, that's where we'll take it from. So it's supposed to be $1 in, $1 out, whatever the program fee was, and we pay for the program. So for animal control, this is not their budget, so their budget would be, if we want to give them more money to do more animal control items, this is not what we do, we just do it in the regular general fund budget.
Thank you.
So Article 8 is to fund capital budget, so from free cash, we have a mobile surveillance camera slated, a replacement pickup truck for the fire department, the highway garage roof, it's actually not gonna be a salt shed roof, and voting machines for the clerk's office. Those are the items projected to come from free cash. Article 9 is water capital projects. So there's $500,000 in water distribution system rehabilitation, cleaning and relining the pipes, and then $35,000 for roofing on the corrosion control buildings. Article 10 is to $57,000 and put it in the town hall improvements fund. So last year, we were, town meeting approved funding for the basement in town hall. What we're looking at, basically, they were gonna fund remodeling the bathrooms and putting in a drop ceiling and more veneer type items. So when we're looking at it, we don't wanna waste money by painting it and and still have the underlying issues. So what we're gonna do is hold down and give the overall concept design for this project, and then go out and fund it all at once when we either have enough money to fund the whole thing, or we have an overall comprehensive plan.
Where's the 57,000 coming from?
So that money comes from the solar field. That's the rim.
They went up 7,000 on the rent? Used to be
Yeah,
50.
it's-
Through the
Okay.
chair,
Thank you.
through the chair. So what happened to Article 2 from the July 31st?
Yeah, that money's just sitting there.
Just sitting there?
So,
So it's gonna be the 55 plus the 57
yep.
to do that renovation downstairs?
So that's not enough to do the project.
Really?
No.
What?
So,
The whole 55 plus the 57?
right, so originally the project was just to upgrade the bathrooms and just cosmetic stuff. Right now, so we had an engineer, we asked him to look at it, the town engineer, and say, look, we don't want to waste money by just fixing the bathrooms. So what would it take to actually take care of the problems down there? We have airflow issues and some of the safe areas have problems with proper air filtration. And so when he did his full analysis, it costs way more than the $100,000. So all we're saying is, you're gonna put the money in the account now, and we're gonna hold on to it until we have a roadmap to do
Okay,
it.
so that 55 that we
It's-
approved in Article is just sitting
It's
there?
just sitting there in that
Okay.
account.
Thank you.
Right. Article 11 is $20,000 put towards our OPEB fund. Article 12 is $135,000 for the creation of an economic development fund. That fund would be used to help businesses relocate to Webster, help facade improvements, and if there were public projects that would help economic development efforts in Webster, that would be a funding source for those.
Excuse me, through the chair again. OCD involved in that? Can they get us money?
So they have their funding source, CDBG funds, and their next grant was dedicated to doing the next phase of the Riverwalk project. Article 14 is to allow the selectmen to sell the Filmer building. The bids are due on the 30th of that. Article 15 was intended to take the proceeds from the sale of that building and put it into the stabilization fund. You can find out there's a Mass General law that does not allow you to do that. Any funds from the sale of property have to be either used for a life project or to pay down the debt for a life project. So we're going to use those funds as originally intended to pay down the costs of the administration offices.
That's what we originally approved,
That's what,
and
yeah.
town meeting originally approved, correct?
Article 16 is to allow the town to enter into a 5-year contract for the marina at the beach. Currently, with a 3-year contract, the return is not enough to pay for the initial capital costs of the dock project. So if we were to stay with the 3-year project, the town would have to front some of the money. If we can expand that over 5 years, the hope is that there will be little initial, if any, investment on the town side. Article 17 and 18 are pilot agreements for new solar fields going into town. One of these is off of Bigelow Road, and the other one, the address is 0 School Street, but it's kind of behind Malden Street. So this allows the Board of Selectmen to enter into agreement for it. Currently, the going rate is about $10,000 per megawatt for these facilities. That could be an additional $20,000 to $30,000 depending on how many megawatts it's going to be. Here's a map of the one at 0 School Street. It's the mall, off the mall in the back. So Article 19 is the prohibition of public consumption of marijuana. Article 20 is sponsored by the school committee to request funds to, at the new administration offices, there's a parking lot, horseshoe area, they're requesting money to fund repaving that and adding some landscaping.
Through the chair, how much money are they asking? I don't want to put you in there.
I mean, we should ask them, but I think they're going to request $35,000.
Why would that not be here on the warrant, so people can see this prior to?
Right, so it'll be on the recommended motion here. We'll have the amount, so when this is published and on the website, it will have the dollar amount. They were, last I spoke to them, they had gotten bids and they were, I don't want to speak for them with that.
No, I don't
information.
expect you to.
But we'll have some when this is published.
And they do have bids, you said.
Yeah.
Through the chair, and we can't tie that expense into the sale of the Fillmore building, saying that,
So I could look into that. Probably, there's a chance we could. I mean, yeah, there's a chance we could. I don't know if that is a benefit to us, though. It would save some money up front, but it would just push the cost over time.
You know, the last time they requested at one of the last town meetings, they said that was the last money that they needed to do their repaving and upgrades.
So Article 21.
No, that's all right.
2021 is to fund $600,000 for a new fire engine for the police department, fire department. So this vehicle would replace engine 5 and ladder 2, as well as when the tanker, which is currently like 37 years old, when that is no longer able to be driven without extensive repairs, it'll fill the need of the tanker as well. So the funding for this is currently proposed to be a capital exclusion, which is basically a one-year override. And that would be it's about $73 for the median household here in Webster.
How much?
73.
I guess, through the chair.
Right here.
Based on our tri-meeting with the Board of Selectmen and the school committee and the town, you know, you did specify to all of us that FY19 is, we just made the budget, that the next 4 years is, we're in a big deficit. I'm just trying to grasp why people, we just need to stop spending for a while. You know, the override, I know we'll probably need to go into overrides somehow, but is it something that we, you know, this fire truck, is it something that we need within the next 4 years? It's just that
So
we don't have any money, but yet we're going to try. You know, we keep saying it's only gonna be $73 for the average household, but everything that we borrow for is another dollar to the taxpayers. Water rates, we know are going up, we
Yep.
need to go up. To me, I'm looking at what are our priorities? Our priorities right now are water.
So I don't want to interrupt, but so there is definitely a need for a new fire truck. By the time this would be replaced, it would be 25 years old. It cannot be extended another 4 years.
Through the chair.
But
We
can I
met
finish,
with the
actually?
fire department on
Hold
Wednesday.
on.
Yeah, let me just finish. So, I mean, we are gonna look at other options. Can we somehow fund a portion of it some other way so that there may be less of an impact to taxpayers? But just to say we can't, we already spent so much money, it doesn't mean that we don't have existing needs right now. And I understand exactly what you're saying, that we gotta.
But I'm just saying, you know, is it a truck that we, with all the vehicles we have, is this something we really need? Is there a community next door who has one that, in the need that we do, you know, mutual aid? You know, I know we do a lot of mutual aids to other surrounding towns because we got a lot of nice, I mean, we got.
Right. I mean, I think we want to be very careful that we're not, that the vehicles we have, that we actually need them. And I think the fire chief has done a great job taking 3 vehicles and replacing them with just one. And you know, the 2 vehicles that, the tanker and the ladder are so old that any day that they could go completely out of commission. The current engine 5, like I said, is, by the time any new vehicle will be on site, that would be 25 years old. The guidelines are not to have it go past 20 years, so we're already pushing the envelope there. And I understand that we don't want to spend money, but there are needs that have to be met, and the best way to do it is to have a replacement plan, and we just know that those are going to have to be replaced as we go over time, so we can pay for them through other ways rather than.
You know, is it a possibility of paying for this vehicle through free cash or something?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a,
Yep, no, I totally agree. So that is one thing I have been trying all day to scrape together other sources of money to pay for this other than going to a capital exclusion.
again, through the chair. We did go down there on Wednesday, where there was a presentation, and we viewed the vehicles that are there. We have an abundance of vehicles, no question about that, and they're kept quite well. But after seeing what they want to replace, and the reason they want to replace it, I was anti the fire engine last year. I was anti it until Wednesday when I went down there, and I spoke to everybody, saw everything personally, and yeah, I would agree with Chief Hickey. We do need it, and it's not going to come in right away. It'll take another year before it comes in.
Into the chair, I would agree. It's in rough shape. I mean, they maintain those vehicles, but you go and look at this, and I think me and Doug said, you look at the size of the cabin, for example, you know, you put me and Doug in there right now, and we're gonna be squeezing in there, let alone if you had jackets on and helmets. There's no communication between the front and the back because of how old it is. The new truck's gonna have, I believe, an additional 500 gallons of water. They're also gonna make it the first responding vehicle, and the hope with that is that there's 2 other trucks that are similar ages to the one being replaced, and by making this the new first responder, you can increase the length of age on those 2 other trucks. So if you look at the truck and you do really take a view at what the conditions are, I can see that it does need to be replaced. But I also brought this up with, this is a Prop 2.5 override, and if I'm looking long-term, there's a good chance that in the spring, we're gonna have to come forward with a Prop 2.5 override for other reasons. And my worry is, coming in the fall for this, is that gonna undercut the budget for next year? Because taxpayers are gonna say, we just gave you $650,000, now you're asking for another $1.2,900,000, and not realizing that this is falling off in a year. And that's what worries me. Does the truck need to be replaced? I really do think so, and I think that they have a plan in place to extend the life of other vehicles by getting this, but I do think that there is issues potentially with getting this passed by a vote in the fall that may impact us next year for other things.
Point of clarification, you mean as opposed to the spring vote?
Yes, I think that if you bring this in the fall, and this passes, and then you come in the spring and ask for additional $900,000, you're gonna have I think you're gonna have difficulty getting that additional money, because they're gonna come back and say, well, 4 months ago, we gave you $650,000, and most voters aren't gonna care if they give it to you for the truck or for the budget. It's gonna be, you increased my taxes to pay for something, and I guess there has to be, maybe I'm looking too far down the road, but I think you gotta weigh it. Do people wanna pay taxes for the truck, or do they wanna pay taxes to keep the budget? Now, the only other thing I want to put out there for the fire department is, they put together a great presentation for us. And they raise a lot of money, and have paid for a lot of their own equipment through donations and charities that they, and through drives that they do. And I really think that most people don't realize how much their own equipment they've paid for themselves and haven't come to the town for. I think they should get credit for that, because they do come forward and ask for $650,000 for a big truck. But they paid for hundreds of thousands of dollars of, small equipment they found online, equipment for the firefighters that they've paid for themselves and didn't come to the town for.
Right. And I don't disagree with you. I agree with you that doing it right now puts the other one in jeopardy. And so we've been brainstorming other options to pay for this, whether that's a portion of free cash now, putting the down payment aside, free cash in current year money, and then having the rest come from next year's free cash amount. So those are all things that we're.
Through the chair, I think, with us probably being in this situation is, hopefully it's doing like you're doing right now, is being more creative, looking at different ways, rather than just, this is the way it's gonna be. But more now is, let's, hate to use that saying, but think outside the box, you know what I mean? But find different ways to raise money or somehow to.
Right, and this, and as proposed, being a capital exclusion was kind of outside the box. It's nothing we've never done before.
Yeah.
Because we're thinking that if it's just a one-time hit, maybe it's more palatable to
Yeah.
people. But anytime you're asking
Yeah,
people to pay.
but it's getting to a point too where the people are absorbing a lot of tax dollars, you know, be it on real estate or be it on
Yeah.
water and
Yeah.
sewer.
And they are, however, they voted for a lot of those. They voted for new elementary school, new library, and police station, and not that.
You know, I know it's easy to say that they voted, but based on our knowledge of town meetings, out of all the people, taxpayers and registered voters, you only have 170 people maximum, mainly that's spending the town's money.
Well, those are all ballot, I mean, they need that exclusion,
Yeah.
it's
Yes,
a
yeah,
ballot as well.
yeah. But, you know, if you put it on a ballot, then you have more people voting, and you know, we saw, 2 years ago, that I think we had Proposition 2.5 articles on a ballot, and all of them got shot down, you know? But try to take it up at town meeting, and you only have, you know, I think that the biggest town meeting I've seen, so it's 170 people.
But yeah, so all those debt excluded projects were approved at town meeting and at the ballot. And I agree that people are paying a lot more than they were
Yeah.
previously, but they also voted for a lot of
No,
those
yeah,
increases.
yeah,
And through the chair,
All right,
just,
but
I'm
we
sorry.
need to move
Okay.
along so the
Yeah.
public
Yeah.
can have time to ask.
Okay,
Okay, last one.
that's fine.
Is Article 22, so I'm gonna zoom in on this a little bit. So this is next to the St. Joseph Cemetery. So there is this lot which, last town meeting, we voted to make this B5. Now they're asking that be zone industrial as well as this other portion lot too. So look at, this may put it in a better perspective for you. So here's Old Worcester Road. Here's some, that's the cemetery over there. That's all. Questions on that? So that's all the warrant articles.
Through the chair. This is the public hearing, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Any questions
Is there
from
any
the-
questions from the audience? Anything you want to go over again? Okay.
Through
We
the
have
chair, I
5
make
more
a-
minutes, so.
yeah. I can make a motion that we close the
Second.
public hearing.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Reconvene in-
So Sarah, I don't think we need to necessarily reconvene. Did you, because this is all one meeting, set for 6 o'clock. So
Yep.
I think we just move on to the next item.
Okay.
So, and if we could skip to introducing our new town accountant, now that he,
Patiently.
yeah,
Waited.
patiently waited, but it's probably good to know what we'll be talking about for the next.
I wonder where you were from.
Nick Adamopoulos.
Sarah Sanson.
Nick Adamopoulos.
Laura Backus.
Neil Dixon, nice to meet you.
Tim, yes, you just a brief introduction, and if you guys want to ask him a few questions.
I would.
Anyone but Mike?
Well, Tim and I go back a long way. We've gone toe-to-toe on town meeting floor. Tim, we have a capital improvement plan, and in the capital improvement plan are vehicles. My opinion, vehicles don't belong in a capital improvement plan. They belong in a set budget and term. In other words, if we know that a vehicle has a 10-year life expectancy, we go and we say, all right, every 12 years or every 10 years, we're going to inspect, and maximum 12 years to keep that vehicle in that particular department. Is that at all humanly possible through the accountant department to get something set up like that, rather than put them into a capital improvement plan, which they don't belong?
Can I answer that, actually? So, I mean, I think that is what, I mean, I don't think that is what our capital plan is. So we have on our capital plan, since the.
Yeah, it is in the capital plan, but what my impression, my interpretation of a capital improvement plan is the roofs, the roadways, the pipes, and not a vehicle.
So, and I think maybe it's just semantics of what's capital now. So in my mind, I have a replacement schedule in our capital plan for all the vehicles and any major equipment purchases. And then also we have, all the building improvements that we foresee. So I don't think it's appropriate to have it in the operating budget because it's not a continual expense each year. But we do need to plan for it, and whether you call it a capital plan or some other plan, it is the same thing. A replacement plan for existing vehicles.
Thank you.
But I'm more than happy to have Tim do that.
Eventually.
Yeah.
So just a little bit about myself. Prior to my most recent work with the CPA firm, I was with a CPA firm for 10 years, doing primarily municipal auditing and accounting. So I've got a total of 18 years of municipal accounting auditing background. I've been a resident of the town of Webster since pretty much 2000. Been a homeowner since 2005. And very happy to be here, very excited to be here. If you have any other questions you'd like to ask?
Do we have in that interim week where you're working with the,
Yeah, so, they were here
They were here
all day.
today.
most of the day.
So
is this your first week?
today is the first day, yes. So, kind of trying to get up to speed on certain issues, trying to get up to speed on Munis, and just learning, trying to familiar myself, get familiar with various funds and accounts and the processes that are in place.
Through Chair. Being a Webster resident and now the town accountant, do you have any type of vision on how we should be going forward in this town with our money or non-money?
I think at this point, that's kind of a broad question for me to answer. Having been here one day, I mean, I've been a resident.
Let's see, I assume you looked at our books prior to.
Yes. I would say my role as town accountant is to consult, but I don't want to, I shouldn't be setting policy so I think that's a broad question that at this point in time wouldn't be proper for me to answer. If you'd like to narrow the focus or over time, I think I could give a better response.
But you're not afraid to consult, say, with the TA on, certain ideas that might come up
I think
from the Board of Selectmen or the TA or even the Finance Committee, and not be afraid to say, well, that's fine, but maybe we should take this
No,
route.
not at all. I think if you, Mike Finmore, what he referred to earlier, I have that up in front of town hall, or town meeting, and I've spoken my thoughts on issues, and so I don't think that would be an issue at all.
Okay.
So you want them to tell me to spend less money?
I
I just don't want to spend what we don't have.
I know the prior town accountants have gone to some training on that Munis software. Are you planning on doing that?
I hope to. I haven't even had the opportunity
Look at
to
when,
really discuss it, see what's, other than going through the appropriation and expenditure budget that I printed out today. I haven't even had the opportunity to look to see if that's available in the budget, so, but I would welcome the idea, or welcome the opportunity to do some training.
Yeah, and if you're talking about Munis specifically, they have, they have online ones, we also have, I'm familiar with the reporting end of it, I can do those, but, he's working with Eric and Lisa right now, so they can show him the journal entry forms and how to do that, so Tim's a very smart man.
We're trying to minimize costs, so we're trying to, work with what's most effective. So a combination of training and just hands-on and, and also the staff that's in place, working with Ramona and Lisa, they should be able to show me some of the information that they use as well.
I think, I know Tim quite a while from the town meetings. I think he has the capability of going from a private citizen with thoughts and ideas to town accountant, and I think he's going to see where he was totally wrong battling me on the floor.
Well, I'm very excited to have Tim. We're going to make a great team and appreciate his excitement and energy that he's bringing, and already he's very dedicated. I mean, he's working late on his first day. So.
Very nice. Welcome
Well,
aboard.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Actually, I've got to check to see if Ramona's still there, because
Yeah,
otherwise.
you might be locked out.
Yeah, I might be locked out, so. Thank you.
Take it easy.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, next item of business, approval of the minutes from March 22nd.
Move approval, as written.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there anything new to report, Doug?
The email I sent out, I have made a couple of copies, so somebody wants it, but no, basically, it's the same issues that we knew last month are beginning issues. Snow and ice deficit is $198,000. So as long as it doesn't snow again, that number should hold.
Who knows?
Another area of surplus is unemployment. So what's happened in the past is the general fund appropriates money for unemployment. Each year that money is transferred to an unemployment fund. The unemployment fund actually has a healthy amount in it. So the money set aside in the FY18 budget may not all need to be transferred to the unemployment fund. So that's another area of surplus that we can use if needed. So that would be where I would potentially go to fund some of the prior year bills that were on the funds. And the whole, here's another copy.
Somebody need?
So we don't have to share.
So I made a few notes on areas I thought had issues. So, at the next meeting in May, for the first finance committee meeting in May, I'll be coming to you to request transfers to cover any of the deficits. The way the new law is the finance committee can approve it the last 2 months of the fiscal year, and then the board of selectmen can approve it
So these are the transfers that you're projecting to come
Yep.
in May? Okay.
So to address these areas, so the town council, snow and ice will be done mostly through the town meeting warrant article, Board of Health, custodial overtime, and the other employee payouts. There might be small ones other places, but right now, I think I can cover them.
Okay. Have all the public building expenses been,
They haven't been transferred, so I'm waiting for Tim to start, because I didn't want to pay someone to do that.
well, May's only 2 weeks away.
Yeah, so I guess, one of your agenda items is when the next meeting is, so we can get those prepared for that. Yeah, so on here, I put JE for journal entry to adjust some of those.
Any questions for Doug on any of these line items?
There's a lot to review.
Quickly.
Just
I
as a,
summarized.
as a general, go through the chair, if we could get any of these a little sooner, I know you said you had it this morning, but it would be,
Yeah, it's, right, and I intend to do it, but
um,
a few days before.
Christine, that's for everything too, it would be really helpful to have the minutes more than a couple days before as well, so we have a chance to review them, not during our, well, not me, day job.
Is this something, through the chair, is this something that the accountant can forward to us, or does it have to be you, or?
No, the accountant can do it. So I will be providing this to the selectmen on a quarterly basis with the written summary. If you want to review it every month, that's totally fine, but I mean, we say the same thing every month, so if, I don't care if we want to continue doing that or just adjust and do. When I give it to the selectmen, I give it to you as well.
I think we do like to see it monthly.
Monthly, yeah, that's fine.
I mean, you don't need to print it all if it gets emailed.
Right, I will just, usually these meetings sneak up on me, so I just need to remind myself 3 days before to send it out.
Through the
No.
chair, one question, I'm sorry. Is there one of these for the school department?
There can be, yes.
There can be.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that, probably not on a monthly basis, but maybe quarterly.
Do they forward that to the selectmen?
No, they don't, but that's something we can work with when you can get an update on.
We could probably invite her
I mean,
that quarterly meeting that we go over.
right, it might be more appropriate coming from you, because I'm not really supposed to be involved.
Okay.
But it has to come through the accounting department anyways, right?
So if you requested that of them, I can help.
Okay. That's a good suggestion. Old business, town audit review group update. Well, Laura and I are on that audit committee. And basically, we met once, and the auditor was there and went over the audit report with us, and was a very positive review. With kudos to Doug for seeing that a lot of the changes that were recommended, were worked on, or moving toward. And it's
Yeah.
actually a positive outcome.
Yeah, so, I don't want to talk a lot of time, but this was the presentation we prepared in anticipation of going to the Municipal Finance Oversight Board of the state, which, very good news, they will allow us to use their bond rating versus our own. And their estimated savings was like $184,000 over the life of those bonds. So that was a great savings. And on top of that, one of the items was refunding some of the existing
Refinancing,
refinancing, they call it refunding,
okay.
yeah, but yeah, same idea, that for some of the water projects and water and sewer projects in Park Avenue Elementary School. So those will actually reduce the taxpayers' amount that they have to pay out. And that was estimated at $200,000 over the life of those bonds.
But those are the debt exclusions?
So they're either debt excluded or they were funded through the enterprise fund, so it
Okay.
doesn't actually help the general fund, but it will reduce the taxes due to the taxpayers. So we've talked about health insurance trust fund a lot, so I'm gonna skip this slide, because I'm sick of talking about it. And one of the issues was timeliness of reports of free cash. We got everything on time. I don't know if it was the earliest ever for Webster this past year, but it was certainly a step in the right direction, and well within their recommended timetable. So capital projects, we have like 50 active accounts of capital projects, but we really only have 12 active projects. So working with Lisa from Kinshirk Accounting, she went through all of those. We identified which ones are showing deficits, why they're showing deficits. So at our next town meeting, we'll be able to clear all those out and hopefully offset the balances, surpluses versus deficits. We may need to borrow money that was already authorized for the sewer funds, but hopefully we can minimize that.
Through the chair a second. On the health, go back to the health. Did you speak to the men or the unions on whether they'll accept the transfer of the health plan?
Yeah, we have, so they have agreed in principle to take to forego the premium holiday, and then we will use that money to fund the FY19 health insurance operating budget.
You are aware there's a little bit of grumbling amongst some of the union men out there on that, don't you?
I'm aware.
Okay, thank you.
So one of the issues identified in the previous audit was cash flow problems. One, because we didn't have the money because we hadn't borrowed for it, and we had issues with state aid with help.
We have, through the chair again, I'm sorry. We have a few families with catastrophic illnesses that are quite worried about transfer. Have you put their mind to rest?
So
Are we back to the health insurance?
back to
Yeah,
health insurance. So going back to health insurance, I have negotiated with the Public Employee Committee. We got to the point where they agreed to give me that money for this year. We will address deeper concerns in the next round of PC negotiations.
Thank you.
So there is no scheduled change to the health insurance plans currently in place until FY19, I mean FY20,
20.
so
Yeah.
next July.
So we are on schedule with our reconciliations. We talked about stabilization. We're putting an additional $100,000 at this town meeting, and we did $534,000 at the last town meeting. We're no longer going to be able to do the money from the Filmer building. Oh well. Print is one thing that was recommended by DOR and we're still looking into, and some of the charter changes, we hope will be successful at the ballot on May 7th. So I think that's enough. Is there anything else you want to cover from the audit?
No, it really was a positive. And they said they wanted to use this as a success story. So I think that was huge.
When, however, will we be meeting with the auditors on the next fiscal year? What is their plan? Are we planning on still using those auditors?
Yep. So they will, I mean, this past year, they came in August to start the audit, which is pretty typical. If we want to hold this with the subgroup, do we want to hold a separate meeting prior to them coming in for the next year's budget?
I would think so.
I would like to be involved a little bit earlier than the final presentation.
Oh, right, yeah.
So yes, we would.
Whenever, yeah, if
Okay.
you want to schedule a meeting, we can, I'm happy to attend. The
Capital
capital
plan.
subgroup.
Nick?
Oh, sorry. So Mike, myself, and Earl, we went down there on Wednesday. Went to the highway department and the fire department. We already talked about the fire truck, but once again, they do maintain the fire trucks in great condition, but when you actually look into the vehicles, you can definitely see the age, especially the pickup trucks. They're pretty much falling apart on the fire department side. The highway department, once again, they maintain the vehicles. If you look at the vehicles from far away, they look like they're in pristine condition. You go and look at the bottoms of these vehicles, and they're rusted through. Underneath the mats, on the driver's side, there are holes that have been covered up. The backhoe, once again, from outside, it looks like it's in pretty good shape, but you actually go and look at the underneath, the inside of it, they're in pretty rough shape, and they do show their age when you actually do go inside and inspect them. So you can see that they've tried to maintain these vehicles and get the most out of them, but they are in desperate need of either substantial repair or getting changed. Unfortunately, most of these vehicles on the highway department side, you can't use the parts from any of the older vehicles into the newer ones. It's a pretty good business plan on the manufacturer's part. But, we did look at them, and I think Mike had kind of the same idea. When you looked outside, everyone said they look really clean, they look in their great shape. Unfortunately, the actual vehicle itself is pretty beat up. We also looked at the roof. I think that at first it was both roofs of the highway department, the main facility and the silo. It's a tin roof on the main building that's beginning to rust through. They have gotten some proposals of whether to just change the entire tin roof or to put a rubber matting over it. They have bypassed, I believe, on changing the silo roof, but when we were there, and at least my personal opinion was, that roof is in pretty rough shape. There's water inside the salt shed now, and my fear is that if the roof doesn't get replaced, and we keep letting that water build up, are we going to lose the salt that we bought to save some money now? Whereas fixing it to protect the salt, because, we had a snowy winter this year, but maybe you have a really rainy winter next year and you have all this salt built up and you lose it. And there's water all around the perimeter inside of the salt shed. I guess they've bypassed on looking for the funding for that this year, but I looked at it as a kind of a cost analysis point of, you're gonna buy the salt, if it gets wet, you're gonna lose that salt, and are you really saving anything at that point if the salt goes to waste?
On that same subject, we were told $150,000 for the main garage and approximately $80,000 for the salt shed. And I noticed he's only coming in for $150,000 for the two. So if he can get it done between $150,000 and $200,000, he's saving us money. That was number one. Number two, the repairs to the vehicles presently can range from $10,000 and up from the payload and everything else. So it would be advantageous for us to replace them. And number three, he's 6 men down in the highway department, and it's costing us overtime money like crazy. If he could get 3 more men, we would save what we're spending in overtime and extra wear and tear on the vehicles that only the 6 men can drive, or 5 of the 6 men can drive, 8 men that are out there. We would So I would wholeheartedly suggest that we start looking at hiring and building up our own infrastructure. I believe they've been down these men for quite a few years. So, I can tell you that I'm fairly frugal. And after sitting down and looking at the ceilings and looking at the vehicles and talking to the superintendents and talking to the foremans and visually inspecting and being freely, they let us go freely. They're correct. The infrastructure is falling apart.
And through the chair, just to go back to Neil's point of, we have to make all these, figure out what we have to spend, because we don't have the funds available to do it. Actually being able to go there and see, the roof and see the trucks, it really was eye-opening. You saw the fire truck and you're like, well, it's $650,000. We're looking at some tough times. That's a lot of money. But when you actually open up the doors and look inside and you see the conditions, you wonder, wow, these guys are still showing up at fires, in that vehicle. Or the highway department trucks, there's a hole, where you would rest your left foot when you're driving that vehicle that's been, tried to cover it up. And you kind of sit there and go, are we throwing, as Mike said, money into these vehicles and we're not really getting anything back for the money we're trying to throw in there? And, same thing as Mike, when I first got on the Capitol, I was like, people are gonna ask for everything because they want to change everything. But you really look at these vehicles and you can see that they've lasted a lot longer than they probably should have. And a lot of credit to the fire department and the highway department for maintaining those vehicles, in a condition that they are, because they are getting a lot out of them.
I think our biggest challenge is how, and I agree with you both gentlemen that, our equipment is old and that it's the idea of, how do we go about in the future start paying for these things, the best way.
I agree with you completely that if we have a plan in place, the best scenario is to not have to borrow to replace these and to have cash on hand to pay for them. I mean, that, to go from having no cash available on hand to build up enough to start paying for those is not a one-year process.
No,
It's
absolutely. I mean, it would take us a while to build up our stabilization fund to be able to do this, but if we take that approach saying that, as a community, that's how we want to pay for some of these.
Well, Neil,
Yeah,
Doug will tell you, if he had a baseball bat or a shotgun, he would have used it on me Wednesday, because I suggested that he takes 1.2 to 1.6% from the school budget and shifts it over to the town budget and do what we have to do. And I could see the steam flying.
yeah. No. I mean, if that's what we have to do, that's what we have to do.
I believe that's what we have to do, and I told him I'd give him a fight on the town meeting floor.
We can have the best schools around, but if, on the town side, if our infrastructure is plain English shot to hell because we're not funding it properly,
Yeah. So, sorry, do you want to turn the lights on? What the hell, the sun's going down, it's really dark.
Through the chair, just one more item, I guess, to go back to Neil's point is, they're asking for this fire truck now and these few trucks on the highway side, but they don't have brand-new trucks sitting and waiting. You look at this truck and there's 3 more trucks that are a year younger that are in the same condition. There's a fire truck that's, I think, 18 months, newer than the one they're trying to replace. So if you're looking at now and how difficult it is to try to figure out how to do this, if we don't find a way of changing some of this out, you're gonna have a lot of old trucks that are gonna be in really bad shape, and if they all go at once, we're in trouble. Whether it's a fire truck that can't get out there or highway trucks that can't salt the roads and clean off the snow, you don't have a plethora of new vehicles.
Right, and our plan, we have, for each vehicle, it's like this needs replaced this year, and every vehicle's on a replacement plan. And for the next few years, we're replacing this fire truck now. It'll be 4 years after that, we'll have to replace another one. And so going forward, we just need to have the mindset that every 3 to 4 years, we had to buy another fire truck. And plan on doing that, then each one is replaced within 20 years. And that's the
Neil, the fire truck, they said would go up to 650,000, but Earl very intelligently discussed it with the fire chief, and the assistant fire chief, and the town administrator, and they promised to get it up to 600,000. Get it below, but with taxes and all, up to 600, maximum 605,000. I think that was fantastic for them to go out and renegotiate to keep that price down.
Yeah, so with the fire trucks, I mean, there's, just like cars, there's different quality, and so the Seagraves are higher quality than the E1s, and so we have multiple quotes, and so we want to go with the one that provides the best overall quality for the price. And yeah, we're hoping it will be under the $600,000.
Yeah, they said they would. Plus, they're replacing, like, they have a fire hose on there, and it's equivalent to a brand-new one, even though it's 15 years old. So they're gonna take that off and retrofit it onto the new one. That's gonna save us quite a bit of money.
I
So
know
they proved to be more frugal than we in a town meeting to think they are.
And once
I
again,
mean, they're some very talented individuals down there. I mean,
Yeah.
just with what they did with that trailer for the ethanol foam.
Quite surprised at how much they do on
That's
their
right,
own.
yeah.
they do a lot on their own. And I know that you see the fundraisers they do, but to actually put together a great presentation again, and to see what they're actually paid for themselves while having to come to the town for money, you know, it was pretty eye-opening to be like, they could be asking for a lot more often. And, you know, I think they said they don't charge the town, you know, they don't ask for a custodian to come in, they maintain everything themselves. They send everyone on their own time to the academy. The trailer for the ethanol, some of the water boats, a lot of that was paid from fundraisers, which was something I, wasn't aware of. And it's easy to say, yeah, it's $650,000, but at the same time, 600, but, sorry, but at the same time, it's a lot of money that have raised themselves to not have to come to us.
So just 2 points. Yeah, we talked about the garage and the salt shed roofs. So we had the roofer go out there. They said your priority should be the garage. I agree, and actually, last Wednesday was the first time I was in there, and you could actually see water, so that was a little more concerning. We obviously had already set the warrant, which has just enough money for the highway garage roof, so we'll try to find more money. If possible, we can potentially fund the salt shed as well. If not, that's the first priority to be funded in the October town.
So, through the chair, as we're thinking about different ways of funding these, have you looked at any local roofers that could possibly be like the senior tax write-down, so local people that might be able to do it for a tax rebate of some sort?
So the firms that we went out to look at were local firms, but it wouldn't be possible to, the tax workout program is only like $1,000, there's a max of $1,000, so I think it's worth even bothering trying to figure out how that would work, yeah. But creative idea. And the last thing, so I don't want to fight about DPW overtime, but if you look at the budget we just handed out, they've only spent, it was $2,400 on overtime, on straight overtime for the highway department. If you count for snow overtime, yeah, there's a lot.
It's
Take
you know,
long time to go.
I see it amazing for the amount of people that are on the DPW and the amount of work that they have to do. I mean, they just don't plow snow, but, in the summertime, they've got cemeteries they gotta maintain, parks they have to maintain. There's a lot of work for a shot,
One of the arguments I had Wednesday with Mr. Willitson was, we have by charter a DPW. we're supposed to have a DPW director, and in my opinion, and I think we had it years ago, the water superintendent, the highway superintendent, and the sewer superintendent should have been working foreman under the supervision of a DPW director. And my argument, again, with Mr. Willison was, and he's new, so he really shouldn't take the full brunt of it, is if we got a DPW by charter, then that's what we should do. If we're not gonna do it, then immediately get rid of the DPW by charter and stick to a water, sewer, and highway superintendent.
And I don't wanna go off on that subject, but that's just another layer, another position we have to pay for, so.
All right, moving on, new business. Chapter 90 funds.
Yeah, so Earl asked me to prepare what, chapter 90 funds have been spent in what areas. So, you see this chart, green is strict road improvements, blue is, road design costs, so to design the road improvements, and the gray here is, equipment. So, about 20% of the total chapter 90 funds spent, since we moved over to Munis have been spent on equipment. And I know that it's kind of been a big deal to people, but without the equipment to maintain all these roads, they're just gonna go in worse shape. So we have a pavement condition index study that was done. Over the past few years, it's increased from 70 to 72. That may not seem like a big jump to people, but in the pavement condition world, that's actually a very good increase for the amount of money that they give each year. If you look at other towns, a lot of them are in the 60s. Not saying that we don't have pavement issues, because there are certainly some areas that are pothole ridden that need to be done. I think we do a good job leveraging other sources besides Chapter 90. So we're using CDBG, we're on the TIP program for the state to do all of Claybird Ave, Lake Parkway. So we're trying to use other sources to fund it as well. We want to make sure is that the pavement condition continues to grow. We don't want it to start decreasing. Now is kind of a sensitive time because you see all the potholes and the asphalt company just reopened, so lately we've only been throwing coal patch on it because there isn't anything else available. So now we can go make more permanent repairs and avoid some of these potholes. I don't know how much more detail you want to go into this chapter.
Do you know what he meant by 6-year review?
Yeah, so he wanted me to go back 6 years to see how much was spent in what area.
Okay.
So this goes back to the beginning of Munis, which is at least 6 years old.
When do we need all our recommendations into the town meeting warrant articles?
So it needs to be published 2 weeks before. So we got a week.
So we best get moving on those. So we've had a first pass through the warrant articles, so we're going to approve them again.
So if it's helpful, I can tell you what the selectmen recommended, I don't know if you care. But they recommended approval for all of them, except I think it's Article 15 on the annual, which is my original plan to take the money from the Fillmore building and put it into stabilization. So since that is not legal, they're not gonna recommend doing that.
Okay. And that's the Passover one.
Yeah, so that's Passover. And then they referred to sponsor for Articles 20 and for 22. The rest they recommended.
So through the chair.
20 and 22, they
Refer to
referred to
sponsor.
sponsor, yeah.
Sorry, did I say that fast?
No, I thought you said they passed it, they approved it.
So through the chair, I have a question about Article 19 on marijuana consumption. So with the words ingest, use, or consume, that would prohibit people that are on medical marijuana cards from taking, like cream or anything that, if you had a hand cream that had the THC in it, or a pill, like cancer patients use. So I think that those words could allow for a kind of a crackdown on pain patients rather than the intended use of people just not smoking and like physically smoking.
Yeah, so also to counter that, we don't want, a whole bunch of kids at a public area eating, brownies or some other substance that has it. So that's why the ingest was on there.
Can it be added on there unless you have a medical marijuana card for the ingest part? Because that's state issued.
Yeah, I mean, anything can be added. No, this is standard, this is what a lot of towns have passed. I'm very comfortable with this, I would recommend leaving it the way it is.
I'm sensitive to pain patients because of the community that I work with, and they're getting pushed out everywhere in every way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
So-
and I mean, obviously the intent is not to discourage people from getting medicine that they need. The intent is to discourage people from using marijuana in public areas, much like alcohol is not allowed to be consumed in public areas.
To the chair, Article 17 and 18, the pilot programs, you wouldn't happen to know if they're gonna try to get, what maximum dollar figure they have in mind for that?
For the pilot, so, I would recommend $10,000 per megawatt, which I've talked to the vendor, and they're agreeable to that. There's a range, and originally they offered 7,500, and did a survey of other communities, like what are you getting on your most recent, pilot payments? And the highest one I could find was 10,000, so.
I'm gonna make a recommendation, Madam Chairman, that we mirror the selectmen's and the town administrator's votes on these articles.
Carte blanche? I'd rather go through them, just address each one first.
We just addressed them all with
Well-
the town administrator.
I know, but just as a review, I know Nick had a question on one of them that we didn't go into. So Article 1, I think we're all in favor to,
Is this on the special,
starting with the special, yeah. Article 1, I think we're all in favor of recommending approval. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Article 2, recommend approval. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Article 3. Anyone want to make a motion to recommend approval?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval as written.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Article 4, recommend approval. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Article 5. Recommend approval. It's
yeah.
$198,000 from free cash expected on this one.
Just to get a clarification on the free cash, we're starting with 1.2 million?
So there's 1.2 million left after, our appropriations at the October town meeting.
And based on the warrants, how much are we gonna end up left with?
Let me pull it up.
While he's looking for that, I would make a motion to approve Article 4 as written.
Second.
Any discussion other than clarification? All those
Yeah.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That was Article 5.
All right, so this is,
Sorry, 5.
so total with everything in the warrant will put us at, 1,050,000.
Spent.
Left or?
Spent. So that would leave us 174,000.
Article 6. This is the cleanup of the compost. All those in favor? Any discussion? I'm sorry.
Do we want to pass over while we wait for the additional, because Doug's investigating additional options, or is that?
So we're not gonna have,
Any firmer figures?
no, yeah. They'll have to go dig the test pits, which it will take weeks. The DEP has been fairly understanding when they said, you need to do this immediately, like, so, where are you gonna get my money? Yeah, so.
Through the chair, this isn't gonna have any effect on the solar field, correct? There's,
No, it won't, other than, I mean, yeah, it won't. We'll just either need to enlarge that cap or just remove that garbage.
okay. I'll make a motion to accept it as, Article 6 as written.
Any,
Sec-
okay.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Article 7. This is on the town hall heating system, the borrowings that need to be paid off.
Make a motion that we accept Article 7 as written.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Article 1.
Make a motion to recommend as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Article 2.
Make a motion to recommend as written.
Second.
Any discussion?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Article 3. This is the sewer enterprise budget.
Make a motion that we accept Article 3 as written.
Any discussion? Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm gonna abstain from that one. No. The increase of, I'm gonna abstain from Article 3.
Article 4. This is to raise and appropriate or transfer sum sufficient to operate the water enterprise fund. And this is, the recommended motion is to appropriate the sum of $2,229,837 to operate the water enterprise fund for FY 19.
I'll make a motion to accept as written.
Second? Any discussion?
Abstain.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Article 5.
I'll make a motion to accept as recommend as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Article 6. $100,000 to the stabilization fund.
Make a motion to accept.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Article 7, revolving funds. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Article 8. This is the transfer of funds for the annual capital budget.
I make a motion to accept as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Article 9. This is the water department capital budget.
Make a motion to accept as written.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Article 10 is the moving money to the town hall stabilization fund.
Move approval of the article.
So I just have a, sorry.
Point of clear, well, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
So are we just gonna yearly just continue putting money into this fund and then hopefully one day use it?
This plan, I mean,
So I guess my other question is, are we actually going to use it for the town hall basement, or at some point are we gonna say we have to transfer it to something else because we need the money?
so to transfer it out of there would be, 2/3 vote at town meeting. So, the plan is to use it for town hall, and if it extends to the basement and the roof. What I would like to be seen done, is, I have an engineer's estimate for just the basement, which was more than I think I could afford in several years.
Well, I guess, do we know what that number is?
So he gave me, he gave me his engineer's estimate to, put together a bid spec and all that stuff. So his, engineer's estimate was almost $100,000 just to design it and do the construction manager, which is an insane amount of money. So either we need to drastically scale that back, well, we will need to drastically scale that back. But I also, am a little bit concerned about the roof and make sure that if we're touching this building, we get everything done at once. So maybe rather than, yeah, so we're just still looking into it, I guess, is the.
We just had the roof done, and I see there was a leak in the rotunda.
So that, yeah, they fixed some leaks, back in late fall, so since then, we haven't noticed too many, additional water problems, so we think that we might have gotten all. But it is, I mean, the building's 100 years old, and, well, maybe not 100, but the roof's getting up there in age, so. Before we spend any money, we just wanna make sure that we got the comprehensive plan to address it.
But we have no, I'm sorry, to the chair, we just don't, so we have no idea how much we're gonna keep putting into this until we're actually gonna start spending it?
We, town meeting voted that all the money from the solar field goes to this account.
Why don't we just leave it there till we know what we want to do?
I mean, that is what we're doing.
No,
So it goes to the town, right,
we're asking, this thing here is where,
to take it from the town hall stabilization
Stabilization.
to put in the capital account, so that, so that allows us to actually do the project when we get to
That's
the
the
point that
proper paper trail, right? Is that it
Right.
has to come from the solar to the town.
well, it's right now it goes to the town hall stabilization.
No, right now it goes to the general fund stabilization.
No, it goes to town hall stabilization.
Oh, it
So,
does?
yeah.
So why don't we
Why do we
ask,
have to vote on it then?
So, you know, we could just leave it in there, to be honest. It doesn't really matter. So it could be in that one, or it could be in the actual capital account, or, so either way, the interest is bearing in the capital account or the stabilization fund, so.
Quick question to the chair. Down in the basement, we have the OCD.
Yeah,
Years ago, OCD was across the street from Dunkin' Donuts, and they paid a rent. They don't pay us a rent. I've asked this question 15 times, I'm gonna make it 16. Why don't they pay us a rent?
if they paid us rent, that would be less money to go to a project to improve the
Their projects are grant, she gets paid by grant money. I don't understand why we allow it. If we put them back in on Main Street, you're gonna have to pay a rent. If the veterans wanted that area, and we were gonna knock the Veterans Hall down, where would she go?
It's a hypothetical, why are we talking about
Hypothetical.
that? So we could charge them rent, yes, but that is just less money that would go to improving our downtown. So you're stealing money from one pocket to put in the other.
I don't see how it steals money from the downtown, because I remember when they were gonna do signs, there were so many restrictions that most of the downtown people said, no, we don't want the OCD money for the signs in the front, repairs and beautification. I could see if they put a cantilever or canvas over the whole downtown, and we can have that as a restaurant row, then I'll go along.
All right, so back to town hall stabilization.
I just had to bring up the rent money. It's another thorn on my side.
Yeah. Right, so when the warrant was put together, we were expecting the engineer's estimates to come back much less. So I honestly don't care at all if it's town hall stabilization or in the town hall capital account. So if you put it in the capital account and I can adjust the project down, it'll let me do it without going to town meeting again.
Okay.
Just need an
Yeah,
explicit
yeah.
reply.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Article 11, see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash $20,000 to the other post-employment, the OPEB account.
Make a-
Any discussion?
I make a motion that we accept it as written.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Article 12. We have a motion,
Make a motion to accept as written.
a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yes, so this Economic Development Fund, is this, I saw in the paper that Webster was it like something about putting in money into the town, and that the state gave them some sort of, there was like 13 areas and Webster was one of them?
Yeah, so,
Is that
yes, we were
kinda
designated an
timings?
opportunity zone. So I think it's actually, most of East Main is considered an opportunity zone, so that allows developers, when they construct a project in that area, that basically their taxes can be written off. It's not straight money that ever goes to us, but it makes it more appealing for a developer to construct a project there.
Have we been accepted for that?
Yeah, we
Okay.
just last week.
Is the bidding over on the School Street, the school, Fillmore School yet?
That's like 2 articles away, but it's, it closes next Monday.
It is, have they been opened yet?
We had 2 walkthroughs. We-
Substantial or
Uh,
rejectable?
There, I think we will get a good project out of
Yeah, because I know that Wendy's originally wanted to go there when they went further down. That is a nice little spot for a fast food place.
it. I don't need any more fast food closer.
I don't need any less either.
But I can't speak about it, but there's one in particular that I think everyone in town would be happy with.
Probably dairy.
If it was Chick-fil-A, now we're really talking.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
We're on to 13, right?
Yes.
So Article 13, do we have a motion?
Why do we have to supplement each prior vote? Did we do something wrong? Or
No,
is that
the
a
law
recommendation of the
changed.
DOR?
The law changed with the Municipal Modernization Act. So I must have skipped this, 'cause I don't remember talking about it.
No, you didn't.
So, right now, when you issue a bond, there's a premium on it that is used to pay down the issuance costs. And usually it's a little bit more, and so in the past, that money just got counted as general fund revenue. Now they let you use that money to actually pay down the debt for which you're borrowing it for, which makes a lot more sense.
Move approval as written.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Article 14.
I make a motion to accept as written.
Second.
Any discussion? Nothing, huh, Mike? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Just had the discussion in the wrong time.
Article 15.
Make a
This is
motion that
the-
we pass over.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Article 16. To see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to enter into a contract for operating a marina at the Veterans Memorial Beach with an initial term of 5 years, and subject to such extensions as the select board may authorize or take any action thereon. We have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept as recommended.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Article 17.
Make a motion that we accept the article as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Article 18.
Make a motion to accept as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Article 19.
I'll make a motion to accept as written.
Is it legal?
Yeah, every,
Same.
not every,
It's
but,
been approved by the attorneys?
yep.
It's the same thing as
I'll second that
alcohol.
motion. I called the police department and told me it was up to the discretion of the property owners.
Do we know if, so we've had first and a second, so now is there any discussion?
Yeah,
Do we know if the medical marijuana can be like on a patch or something?
yeah, so there's creams, there's pills, there's edibles, there's a whole bunch of stuff. So that's why the words ingest or consume are concerning to me as discriminatory to those who need it for pain management.
Well, but I can understand a cream, if you shake somebody's hand, it's got THC on it, and you're a kid or something. But if it's on a patch, then that's got a seal on it, so no medication can transfer.
I can understand like smoking. I don't want anyone smoking or vaping around in public areas, but ingesting through the edibles is typically how many of the pain patients take it.
Yeah, but I think the concern with that is that their disposal of any excess or losing it is the concern.
Or,
So,
yeah.
I have one question. How much does it cost when we send the cop to the court for the day?
I mean, so usually it's on overtime, so if you assume, could be $60 an hour.
So, because I know that this came out in a lot of municipalities when the original decriminalization bill came out.
Yep.
They were giving out tickets. And then the towns weren't sending the cops to court because it actually cost
money.
more to send the cop to the court than what they were gonna receive from the ticket. Is $300 going to potentially be enough to offset that, or is this just gonna be, a law with no bite?
Yeah, so, it's a good point. So originally, it was $100, and we increased it to $300, in part because, 100 may not be enough of a threat, and then two, to cover our costs. I would say, one, we need it just so a police officer can go out there, and if they're actually doing it, he can legitimately threaten them that you're breaking the law. Of course, they're gonna use discretion as they apply the enforcement of this.
To the chair, it was my understanding we had a police officer stationed at the courthouse, and he answered all complaints for the town. That's not any longer?
I mean, we don't have a police officer that just sits at the courthouse, no.
We used to have an officer assigned to the courthouse who answered all Webster complaints. for
Yeah,
the
I
police
think there is a
department.
designated officer for that. I don't know. I don't think he just sits down there, though, so.
Through the chair. I will just say this, if we're gonna do this, I hope the $300 is enough to cover it and that we actually are gonna do it, because people realized on the previous one that it wasn't enough, so they weren't gonna send cops. And no one got afraid of getting that ticket, because they knew they would fight the ticket,
Yeah.
the cops wouldn't show up, and it would get thrown away.
Right.
And I understand you have to put this in place because you have to, protect the public ways. But at the same time, if you're gonna do it, you might as well do it so that if cops are going around, because it's probably gonna happen, especially when this first gets out there, that, we're gonna get the bang for the buck and not just have a bunch of people say, well, Webster cops aren't gonna show up, so just fight it, and then you'll walk away.
Yeah, so the original state law said something like it couldn't be more than $100, or the fine was set as $100. And so, our attorney's record saying you can't go above it. And then it comes around that, they felt like $300 would be acceptable because it was a local bylaw and not enforcing the actual state bylaw, the state law.
So why don't we just go higher?
Go higher than 300?
I would do it now.
Well,
I mean,
wouldn't you
once we-
seek the advice of the police department?
Yeah, and this is what, I met with the deputy chief and we agreed to this language. And council was a little bit hesitant to even go out with 100, so. But we can go back and ask. I can ask the question, and if we want to amend it on town meeting floor, we can increase it.
What would be an average day cost if we had to have a patrolman up there?
To go to,
Yeah.
I mean, it would be 3 hours, so I would think, between travel and going and sitting there.
So you're looking at what, $200, $210?
Yeah, so we're probably about breaking even.
So through the chair, how would we even enforce it? So clearly smoking or vaporizing, you can see it, but the rest of them we don't have.
Right.
Any way to even,
And you have to leave a lot of the discretion to the police officer. If there is a group of kids and they go over and they find edibles and it's turned into a bad situation, that they have the ability to enforce. it.
Fine, whoever brought it.
Yeah.
That's good, that's okay.
then that becomes possession rather than ingestion.
One thing I found out through Chair, that a lot of the people ignore the town of Webster's bylaws because of the fines. I know there's, just in the wintertime, someone does not shovel his sidewalk because he'd prefer to pay the fine than to pay somebody to shovel his sidewalk, because it's cheaper to pay the fine than it is to have someone shovel the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So it's, it's,
Right, so this is written, so it has non-criminal disposition, which allows us a lot more flexibility to, fine them or keep money from them without going to court to enforce the fine.
To elaborate on his observation, if you're telling me I have to shovel the sidewalk, and you're gonna fine me if I don't, that makes that property technically in front of my house mine. So does that make it a private property or public property? For the sake of this bylaw, does that make it a private property or a public property?
Alright, so,
That is
I'm not
nothing
sure what you're
but
talking
fire.
about. Yeah. I mean, there is a bylaw that says you have to remove snow and ice from in front of your property. I don't know how that matters. That does not make it personal.
Until we put our foot into it, we're not gonna know, right?
I'd increase it.
Move the question, Madam Chairman. We've approved it for
All those in favor?
aye.
No,
Any noes? Did you see no?
I said no.
Number 20.
I make a motion that we refer to sponsor.
Second?
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
21, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $600,000 for the purpose of purchasing equipment and maintaining a new fire engine.
Move approval, as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Through the chair. Once again, I go back to the long-term thinking of, is this, if we recommend this and this passes, are we hindering ourselves in the springtime? I think the truck needs to get done, but I also think the budget next year is very important, and I guess I look at it as, you're gonna ask people to come out and vote to raise their taxes, and they're not gonna realize that their taxes are gonna go back down, and that it's only gonna slightly go up again.
Can I recommend that you delay a vote on this until right before town meeting? And you can make a decision right before town meeting.
We're going to hold on this.
Yeah,
But I do think we need a truck.
right.
I'd like to see it paid with free cash.
Our-
That would
Can
be
we-
ideal.
Can we make that recommendation on a vote or something? Or-
How much free cash we have?
Well, I think we can
100?
just hold, and
Huh?
127?
we could just hold on it.
I don't like holding. It's either we accept or don't accept or make a recommendation.
You know, it's not gonna hurt my feelings either way. So if you make a recommendation, say we feel like the truck needs to be purchased, but we don't like the funding source, and you can make
Who
that.
made the initial motion?
I think it was.
Mike. Do you want to amend his motion?
Yeah, I'd like amended motion that, how do we word this now?
Do we want?
We don't have the free cash available.
To approve?
So,
So
right.
we'd have to disapprove it.
So a couple things we could do, look at other options. So can some of it be funded through the operating budget in 19? So, for instance, we did just enter into a new marijuana agreement, which would give us an additional $50,000 in fiscal year 19, so.
Can we just add to that verbiage, other funding,
Other funding, yeah.
Other
Other
funding
fun- yeah.
sources, means?
meaning we don't have to go to an exclusion, we can go to somewhere else.
Right.
That,
Eh.
I'll amend the motion to add other funding to the,
Yeah, as long as we're not locked into,
a debt exclusion.
Well, I guess
Yeah.
my only question is, when would this go on the ballot? November?
So if, no, there's this, a
Yes.
primary election the day after Labor Day, so that would be the next available ballot if we.
So we
did it
wouldn't
that
know about any available funds at that time, would we?
At that meeting, we wouldn't have, I mean, we could have, well, most likely would not have free cash certified. I could have an idea of how much would be certified.
I mean, once again, go back to Neil, I guess, we need the truck, and then this is probably the way that it's gonna have to get paid for. And unfortunately, just looking long-term is, I mean, is this what we're gonna have to do every few years now? Is we're gonna keep coming back with Prop 2.5s, and then looking at 4 years and maybe having to keep funding the budget? I mean, as Neil pointed out in the beginning of the meeting, you can only go to the town so many times before they're just gonna say, you know, I don't care what it's for.
Right. So the plan is to look at the free cash each year and say, okay, over the next 4 years, we have this much projected in costs. If we have a little extra this year, we save it to fund next year when we have more costs. You can recommend whatever you want. I will be looking at other funding alternatives, and I hope to have a different scenario that we can amend at town meeting.
probably the safest way for us is to pass over.
I don't think you're gonna be able to pass over.
I mean, that's our recommendation.
Yeah. Again, I think if we just add other funding in there, we protect ourselves.
But if we put, just to the chair, if we put other funding in there, if they accept this article, it can still go to a ballot, though.
Before we go to
It could, but if he finds
Okay.
But,
I mean,
adequate funding.
if you say pass over and they still accept it, I mean,
yeah,
you
but at
still
least,
go to ballot.
yeah, absolutely, but at least we're not giving it a rubber stamp here, you know? I mean, they do need it, yes, they do.
If
But
you
it's
want to
even like-
withdraw your second, you're welcome to, but I'm not going to withdraw my approval with other funding.
I guess, are we going to let it be known at town meeting that there's a decent chance that there's gonna be a Prop 2.5 in the springtime prior to these votes?
So, we're gonna set up a meeting, and actually I was gonna talk to the chair about, we had the one meeting, hold another one before town meeting to discuss what information we want to present and how much detail we want to get to the
I
town.
think the town people need to really know.
Yeah, I go back to what
Basically.
Neil said at the tri-meeting is, you have three groups of people and the people that show up, and those are the only people that know what's going on, and I bet you there's a bunch of people in, you know, these unions that don't
They don't
realize
know,
what
yeah.
really the town budget's gonna look like next year or the year after that. And there's gonna be a lot of people that are gonna come to the town meeting and vote and not realize that, oh yeah, $650,000, it's the fire department. You know, I think we did point out to that, the truck's needed, so hopefully that gets around.
Yep.
But is it gonna get around that, yeah, you're gonna raise your taxes now and probably have to raise them again? Because there'll be an uproar. I mean, it was an uproar about the sewer and the water.
Yeah.
Is there gonna be a big uproar about taxes that are gonna go out? Yeah.
Right. So, I'll find every other alternative funding source for this truck.
So I go back to that we should hold on this until we have a little more information.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
All in favor that we hold on this?
Aye.
Till the,
Aye.
meeting before the, town meeting.
Can we have, both ways? Taking Mr. Finnemore's suggestion of putting up, or other,
We can change it then.
huh?
We can do that motion at that time.
Yeah, okay.
Article 22, see if the town will vote to, I didn't pass it, did I?
21, nope, 22.
No, you're not, you're right.
22, to see if the town will vote to amend the town of Webster zoning map. Is this a refer to sponsor?
Refer to sponsor. I make a motion that we refer to.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
That's that. See those. All right. Board of Selectmen flat rate tax for the town water capital. Could we just go over the results of the selectmen's meeting?
So, the selectmen voted to implement a $20 per quarter fee to fund capital improvements, and then a 2% increase on the water rate. So, that's what they voted at the last meeting.
And this is the debt related to the water filtration plant?
So it would be debt related to that, as well as moving forward, debt that could be issued to rehabilitate water mains. So we are currently actively investigating other options, scenarios. So that is what they approved. It was actually suggested that we hold a public hearing and say, okay, there's what was adopted, we could do something else like a straight, everyone gets a 14% increase across the board. We could do some sort of tiering, where the higher users pay a higher rate, and we could have a combo of all of them where higher tiers pay a higher capital fee plus a higher rate. And we can have a public hearing and get input on it. If the selectmen at that time choose to amend how the water rates are set, we can do that. But right now, we would have the budget set, we have the funding set to cover next year's budget.
To the chair, can you tell me why we stop water and sewer to the entire town? Why don't we stop at 90%? We got 10% of the town, somewhere between 5 and 10% of the town, unwatered and unsewered. There is a lot of grumbling out there over this $20 per quarter fee. And I can sympathize with the people. I'm on well water, and it doesn't affect me, but I can sympathize with the people. That's number one. Number two, they want to know, people that are paying this money want to know why the entire town isn't bearing the burden. Even those that aren't on water and sewer, why they're not bearing the burden. And we're gonna have to do some explaining, either on the town meeting floor or at a meeting like this, to those people, because they, you know, there's only, like I said, there's only so much that these homeowners can take and these landlords can take, before they abandon what they have and they run to somewhere else that they think is a lower rate.
Yeah, so, I mean, the town has approved these projects, the water filtration plant, so that needs to be funded. And that has to be funded through the Water Enterprise Fund. It cannot be a tax rate. And I think it's appropriate that those who are using the water pay for the water filtration plant. Whether it's a capital fee or a set percent increase and everyone pays the same rate, those I think are rightly to be debated.
What would you do in October if a citizen put in a warrant article abolishing the enterprise funds and putting water and sewer back on the general fund, and it were approved? You know, we're at a stage where you're gonna get a rebellion like that.
Through the chair, so we're precluded from putting any sort of payment on non-water and sewer people? But wasn't this brought up at the meeting that part of the reason of this was for water to the fire department through the hydrants? So isn't that a town-wide issue, like Mike said? I mean, people are paying for schools, and don't
Yeah,
have
and
kids
they don't
going to
have
the
kids.
school.
Right. So,
If it's a
I mean,
townwide-
there are ways to shift some of the costs from an enterprise fund to the general fund, or to the regular taxpayers. That is strongly discouraged by the Department of Revenue. And I think practically speaking, those who are using the service should be paying for the service. You do bring up a good point that a lot of this will be going to improve the fire flows. Still, that is a water enterprise function, so it should be paid for from the water enterprise.
But it's
It's a town-wide
like I
issue.
brought up, and it's the same thing as Nico brought up, that when we decide to build a new school, a lot of people do not have kids that are gonna go to school, but we pay for that school. The library. A lot of people, probably a majority of the people in Webster don't use the library, but the majority of the people, through their taxes, are, no matter what the town does to this water issue, there are going to be people that's gonna like it, and people that aren't going to like it. But I think right now is, and I'm just speaking for myself, I think the approach Wednesday night was wrong. That you don't set these rates and then have a public hearing. I think it would have been wise that the selectmen might have taken this into consideration, have 4 or 5 different scenarios, have a public hearing, let the people come in and say, this is what, we all know we have an issue. These are basically 5 different ways that we can do it. We know that everybody's not gonna be happy with every single one of them, but we have to do something. Hear the people, go back, talk it over, and say, okay, we've heard the people, we understand the people, but this is the way we have to approach it.
So I think the Board of Selectmen, and I talked to the chairman today, I think he's open to doing that. I don't think they made necessarily a bad choice, like, it needs to be funded, that's a very stable way to do it, and it is a lot of communities do it that way, and it's not necessarily a bad.
Because, you know, I'm looking at myself, say I live, right now, I have a house in an area where I have well water, okay? 5 years from now, we've got nice new water pipes, a new filtration system. I find a house that has town water. Hey, you know, I didn't have to pay for it, but I got it.
Through the
Yeah,
chair.
except for you will still be paying for it because
Well, yeah.
the rates
but-
then are still gonna be.
But through the chair,
high.
there's two, the way that the selectmen passed it, I'm gonna pay $80 a year, Neil's gonna pay $80 a year, and Mapfree's gonna pay $80 a year. And they use a lot more water than I do.
Right.
And it just seems that we're not really taking into consideration that there are businesses in town that are gonna use a lot more water than the average citizen. But at the same time, this isn't a Main Street problem, it's not a Lake Street problem, it's a Webster problem.
Yeah.
And whether you're on the water and sewer line or you're not, it's a town-wide problem. And if we're paying for libraries and schools and other town-wide buildings, then why not make this a town-wide issue that everyone's contributing to? Because somehow or some way, it's gonna affect everybody.
But I'm not sure it really does, because if you don't have water at your house, you don't have a hydrant going to your house, if you live on Bluebird Hill.
I'm gonna give you a scenario. We do not have to have water to our buildings. There's no law says you have to hook up to town water. If I go down to Lakeside and I get 500 people to go back on wells and come back off it, and no cross connections, and come off the town water down at the lakes, where they can have their wells already dug, because the sewer came in there late in the 2004, and they go back on their wells, you're gonna lose 500 water rate payers, and they got clearer water than you're giving them. And I use you not as a broad term.
Right, and, sorry, I understand that people are concerned, and we are going back, and we're gonna reevaluate them, and there will still be a significant increase for almost everyone.
But what would you do
It
if you
does
lose
affect
500?
everybody.
If you lose 500 water rate payers,
Theoretically, enterprise funds should be accumulating and have surpluses every year
Yeah.
so that they can.
it wasn't meant to have a surplus.
That was the other issue.
When that enterprise fund was sold to the town meeting in 93, 94, it was to build up $1 million and start replacing the water lines every year, and we never did it. The selectmen chose to artificially keep the rates down. If you looked at, on social media, it showed you the years they artificially kept the rates down. That was their fault, not yours and not mine. Now we're biting the bullet for something that stupidity from 10 years ago and 20 years ago. And again,
But
they,
over time, they will generate surplus.
yes, over time, but people don't, 3 years they've been without proper water. I, on social media, offered my wells to people that can't afford to go down to Price Choppers and buy water.
Right, so, stepping back, so what everyone wants is to reevaluate how this will affect people, and so we will be doing that. We're just gonna have to disagree that I don't think this should be a town-wide issue, I think it should be paid for by those who are using it.
But it does affect home values townwide, doesn't it? If Webster is known for,
Absolutely.
so it does affect everybody, whether you're on a well or not. If my home value is gonna go down because downtown Webster has bad water,
Right.
then
It-
why,
it-
isn't it
there
in my
is-
best interest to
How
help
are you
fix that?
keeping the restaurants open when they're cleaning their dishes with dirty water or with rusty water?
So,
Where's our Board of Health?
the plan is in place to clean the water. It's, do we want to fund it? And we can have the option to do a debt shift and take the money off of those and put it on the taxpayers, but I don't think that is the appropriate use of the enterprise fund. So, But we will reach out, we will hold another meeting to discuss water rates.
When's that public hearing set?
The chairman has not called that meeting, so we will do that pretty soon.
So likely after the town meeting?
After the election.
You have to do it like that.
So, I mean, there is a rate set, so
Yeah.
we're fine if we want to amend it, we have some flexibility.
All right, what I've just handed out is the Webster Finance Committee mission statement to provide financial leadership to town government and town meeting. I just wanted to review the guiding principles. Treat all departments, committees, and individuals respectfully and consistently. Focus on the fiscal aspects of all town issues and remain neutral to the politics of issues. Facilitate cross-functional collaboration between and among the committee and administration. Maintain strong fiscal discipline and continue to emphasize the importance of ample reserves. Maintain professionalism in all matters, media postings, newspaper, emails, and any correspondence as they relate to town departments, including the Finance Committee, its members, or any town employee. It's come to my attention that there were emails that were inappropriately sent out over the past week. So I just think we needed a little refresher on professionalism
Emails from the finance board?
from members of the Finance Committee to members not of the Finance Committee, or to persons not of the Finance Committee, as it related to former finance members. We need a next meeting date. I believe it's,
The 10th of,
we already
May.
said it, right?
Yep. For that meeting, are we gonna have the debt numbers? And when are we gonna put together the write-up for the town meeting? So last year we had how much
You mean
debt? Didn't we have how much debt we already borrowed, how much we could, and we had all those
The debt
figures for?
schedules.
Oh, your, yeah, what do you call that?
'Cause we have to give a recommendation prior to the town meeting, don't we? Wasn't that information in there last year?
It was in there, I don't think it necessarily needs to be in that format. Because we, forgot what we called that.
It was like the inside and outside debt, and
Yeah, right.
weren't we pretty close last year on some of those?
I can pull it up. So the Finance Committee, give the statement of indebtedness report. Alright, so this, yeah, this is what you submitted last year, and we included it within the town meeting guide. So,
So can we have that for the 10th, for our next meeting?
yeah,
For
we
the
can have,
debt schedule, so we can put this together?
right, we can do that, yeah. I don't think this has to be presented this way, it doesn't hurt, so we can still do it. So,
Madam Chairman, before we close the meeting, adjourn the meeting, we normally reorganize in June. It would be advantageous to let people know that the chairman has resigned, and we will be following the rules that we normally follow and reorganize in June.
Right, well, so we will, usually we vote the new
We reorganize, we normally, in the past, we've always reorganized in June, directly after the town meetings, for the purpose of not changing any committee members during the town
During
meeting
the fiscal year.
process.
So after that.
That, it's always been in June before the July 1st period. And I'd like to go back to that, if you don't mind.
Well, we can hold the votes, but right now, let's just get through town meeting, because we have another meeting scheduled for May 10th.
Correct, we have one for May 7th,
No,
May
wait,
14th and May 10th, right.
Right.
Yeah. Do we have the room set up for May 14th already?
I believe we
Do we have the room
have
at
requested.
the school set up?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right,
So the 10th is our next meeting?
10th, yeah.
So,
7th?
And then the 7th is the vote. The
7th is the election.
Yeah, the 10th is just our meeting,
Yeah,
10th is the
And then we
meeting.
have a pre,
the 14th.
14th.
At 5? For some reason, at 5 o'clock, written down. Is
What's
true?
that, on the 14th?
Yeah,
I've got 5:30 marked here.
5:30? 5:30 is better for me, too.
so, sorry, can I ask, do we have an idea what's gonna be on the agenda for the 10th?
The 10th, I think we have to start dealing with the financial report, right? Our annual financial report.
That'll be a short meeting now, because it's right before the town meeting.
No,
Oh.
the 10th isn't before the town.
Oh,
meeting.
okay.
The what report?
So the finance committee has to
That,
get
That
a
report.
report together, yeah.
Okay. I have a conflict on the 10th.
Oh,
Why, can I make a suggestion? On the agenda for the 10th, why don't we just finalize our, what you want to say and what we want to say for the town meeting?
that's that, isn't it?
Huh?
right, and our annual report.
Yeah.
Would it be at all possible to have the town accountant come in on the 10th? If there is any questions, we can let them know 24 hours ahead of time. If not, we don't need them.
Right.
Is that all right?
That,
Lynn?
that would be fine. I mean, yeah. And I can.
Is that all right with the whole board?
Yeah, can we get the indebtedness scheduled,
So what, I can
Couple
get you the
before
indebtedness
that.
schedule
and whatever the limits are for outside, inside? I can't remember what those are off the top of my head.
Are you going to prepare like a mock real estate tax bill of what people had this year and what the add-ons are for
and,
next
I
year?
think that's a good idea. We can throw it in this, the guide.
Okay,
It can even be a part of your report if you'd like that. Or, do you want to be yours or mine? I think it's a good
It can be
idea.
yours.
Okay.
Okay. We have a motion to adjourn?
One question, I think this is a good idea for 2 TVs for,
Yeah, it's,
was the audience
it's a
able to
little
see?
awkward.
Be great for the
Yeah,
board of
see if you can make
selectmen.
those letters a little bit bigger for us blind people.
Board of Selectmen meeting.
Yeah. Is that better?
Make a motion that we adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Before everyone walks out, so what do you want me to do?
Everything.
So, statement of indebtedness.
The limits,
All right. Limits in and out.
on the 10th, are we gonna go, when do we have to do that vote for the fire department article? The 10th or the 14th? The 14th, okay.
If we have all the information about the 10th, I'll give it to you and you can make it.
Oh, and you were gonna give us, wait, didn't we have to meet on the 10th to go over the transfers?
We can do that anytime in May.
Okay. Can you at least give us that breakdown? Do you
Yeah.
have that done by then?
You, right. If
Just
you
so we
wanna
can see
approve- If you want to approve it without me, I'm fine with that too. But I'll give it to you. If you have any questions, you can hold on those. And if you want to approve it, great. If not, we can
Well,
either
we
do it
can
on the
discuss them
14th.
anyway.
You can approve them on the 14th too.
Yeah,
Because when does that have to get to the selectmen by? June?
We just have to have it all done by July 15th.
Okay.
by July 4th.
So, and then I will add the tax bill breakdown in the report.
So I guess, I don't know if this got answered, but are we gonna show them what the budget looks like for the next couple of years? Or is that not gonna get disseminated?
No, yeah.
Well, I mean, those are the people that, you figure the people that come to the town meeting are people that go to the ballot box.
Right, exactly. I think there's some concerns that some people that they don't want to scare people.
I think we have to.
Like, we should scare people, because then it all comes together
Well,
at once.
I think we need
Let's-
to educate them.
Yeah, no, yeah, Ed scare's a bad
I
word.
think-
Scare's a bad word.
Right.
You know, so they don't think, so it's not a surprise.
Yeah.
So this is what's coming, this is what you all voted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So,
We're not creating this, it's what is.
Because it'll be educational if in February you come forward with a big number,
Then they'll think you're
Cut the
saying.
And they
school budget
think-
down,
and they-
we understand.
and they think you're not educated in
That
prior.
1.2%.
Doug, do you have a minute to chat after?
these are all on, so. yes.
Okay, yeah.
Right here, I was laughing.
Sorry.
Are you referring to the email I sent to Joe Casey?
Yeah.
That was public record. It's and
No,
I didn't write
it
it
may be
down.
public record, but it wasn't.
The second one
Usually
wasn't, was
bring
it?
things
So you can't send personal email addresses.
Yeah, if you
You
wanna-
can't send our personal email addresses.
I didn't.
Yes, you
I-
did. If you forward it, it has the email addresses on it. You can't publicize our personal email addresses. Otherwise, Doug has to give us all.
I thought I
town-
sent the one that you sent to Craig.
No, you said the second one.
Second one?
You just make sure
I
that,
thought I sent
You
the one
don't
sent
need to be
Craig.
so
That's public
impulsive.
record.
Why do you need to be that?
Just
Why,
take-
why? do you
Because
need
Joe
to
and I
be
speak
that?
5 times a week.
But that's okay.
Joe and I
Call them
speak
up on the
5 times
phone, call them up on the phone,
We
don't send
email
an
each other
email.
5 times a week. Good night.
I blame him, Doug.
Now that was recorded.
That was recorded too.
I usually say worse.